Among all the threats and dangers within the radius, entities are arguably the most dangerous of all, also called monsters, bad guys, or even creatures of the radius. Entities come in many forms and each have their own behaviors. But why are they here and where do they come from? I have notes that I can share with you that may answer some of your questions. And while I may not know everything there is to know about the entities, I shall share everything that I do know with you. So here's everything that we know about entities. Let's begin with spawns. In my opinion, the spawn is the oldest entity in the radius. We can tell this because it's the only entity whose body doesn't have a solid form. Their body is made from the same black matter that all radius creatures are made from, but these guys move, twitch, and squirm like no other. Spawns are like the first draft of the entity family. They were the alpha entity. Their body, if I can call it that, is made of a central ball that moves like a floating blob of water, never keeping a solid shape. From the body comes legs or tentacles, like that of a sea creature. The legs move the body along the ground in a strange rolling movement, like a wheel made of black spaghetti. And the speeds these little turds can go are unlike anything else in the zone. Actually, spawn are the only hostile that can outrun the explorers. So if you try to run away from one, you'll just be wasting your breath. Their movements are also sporadic and unpredictable. They run this way and that without purpose or meaning, just run, run, run till the cows come home. When they go on the attack, they first need to get close to their target, then launch themselves at the explorer. They attack with blunt force, sending their full mass at your head like a brick. They do mild damage to you, but attack rather quickly if given the chance. And if you are stuck with a group of them, you can quickly become overwhelmed by the endless attacks. However, the spawn have two weaknesses that you can exploit. The first is when they miss, they can become stunned and take up to 5 seconds to recuperate. They are also one of the weakest entities within the zone, and can be killed with a good knife hit. However, you may find them getting stronger the closer you get to the center of the radius. I find the best way to fight these little guys is to take them on one by one and away from other entities. If you can, get a barrier between you and the spawn. They often ram into any obstacles when attacking, giving you a chance to counterattack. Dodging them is fairly easy as well. And once they leap at you, you just need to step to the side, hold a knife out in their path, and this often kills them in one shot. The fragment is the first entity that takes on a humanoid figure. It appears to be made from fragmented shards of radius matter that somehow hold the shape of a long-armed creature we see here. They make this creepy moan that resembles that of a long wheeze of a chain smoker trying to catch their breath. This nasty sound often acts as a battle cry to other hostiles, beckoning all and any nearby entities to come and join the fight as they give away your position. They don't move very fast, and they mostly just stumble around. It's easy to avoid them, and all you realistically need to do is walk away at a reasonable pace. The danger of these guys is negligence. We often don't take them seriously and find ourselves in a sense of false security. They are far from harmless, and if you allow them to get close, they will swipe at you with sharp claw-like hands tearing into your flesh like glass. And even if you do kill them, you risk them returning if you don't destroy their core. The fragment is the only entity that has their own core that resembles the radius orb itself. As long as the core remains intact, the fragment will always return. A round or two from your PM is enough to pop the fragment into, well, fragments. I find the best way to deal with these creatures is to lure it in close and then either shoot it at close range or throw a knife at it. When the core is revealed, take out your knife and just slash it open, killing the entity for good. But if you have a shotgun and are using buckshot, there's a good chance that you can destroy this guy in a single shot. First, the pellets destroy the body, then destroy the core at the same time, as pellets move slower than bullets and hit the core just as it pops up. Be aware that even if you destroy the body of a fragment, it sometimes retains part of its mass to strike you when you get close. Much like a wounded animal, it will still fight if it's down. This is a random occurrence, so don't trust a fragment at any state. Fragments can also come with armor. What makes this such a threat is even if you expose the core of an armored fragment, the armor can remain active to protect the core. If your full metal jacket rounds are not doing the job to take out the core, you may need to resort to a knife to get past its shell, or armor-piercing rounds. We can practically call phantoms a subcategory of fragments. They're practically the same, with only a few key differences. For starters, phantoms are nearly see-through, hardly visible in the gray landscape. They also don't have any armor variants or a core, so if you kill a phantom, they don't come back. But while they are tricky to spot with your eyes, you can often hear them approaching. They let out the same smoker's cry as the fragments, and make the same crunchy, wet sound as they walk. Their weak spot is still the center of mass, and are still quite weak to most attacks. I find shotguns are the most effective for these, as you will have a higher chance of hitting them with buckshot. I hate Seekers. This is the next phase of the Radius creature forms. Now we have an entity that starts to look like a real person. This jerk wanders the zone with a slumped shoulders and nearly silent footsteps, and bright red shards that float around its head. If we examine a dead Seeker to get a closer look at its body, we can see that it actually starts to resemble a person with clothes. I would say this is the Radius's first attempt at creating a replica of a civilian resident of Pechorsk. And while the creature is now taking shape, they are made of unstable Radius matter that violently changes the shape on its own. When this entity spots you from half a mile away, it charges at full sprint until it gets into your face, like a toddler wanting to play games on your phone. Once it sneaks up on you, hot beams of pain are shot directly to you from the entity's face. The beams are hot and lethal Radius matter that act like burning spears that overwhelm your head, which is the main target of a Seeker. Not only does it hit like a burning truck, it acts fast as well, able to strike repeatedly in short but powerful bursts. To hunt a Seeker, I recommend going long range if possible, but be ready for it to move in fast. Whenever it does, aim for the head. It's the weak spot on this entity. It can also come with armor, making it that much harder to kill. There are a lot of different mimics, ranging from police mimics to sniper mimics. Each have their own characteristics and behavior, as well as a wide variety of weapons. However, one thing that all mimics have in common is they are all mimicking soldiers and armed personnel that responded to the event and died within the zone. All mimics have the ability to speak. Only a select set of distorted phrases broken in various tones and pitches. The phrases can be as well as a few others that are hard to make out what they actually say. There are several types of mimics, mostly identifiable by their weapons and body shape. Mimic policemen use PM pistols and appear to have large flat brim hats, much like police wore in Russia during the 1990s. They walk with an upright posture, and with an audible, heavy boot. As soon as they spot a target, they enter a crouch, and will often run for cover as they engage in combat. But when they move for cover, they do not fire their weapons. This can give you a chance to safely attack the mimic while it moves. However, due to its speed, it can be a tricky shot. This is a common trait for most mimics, but not all. One mimic that hardly moves is the sniper. These guys are unique, and not just in appearance, but also function. The sniper mimic appears to be dressed in a Soviet ghillie suit, a common camouflage used by snipers around the world, thanks to the ghillie suit ability to make you look like a walking bush. You can find snipers standing around on the high ground, doing their best to look like dark trees. Building rooftops, guard towers, and hiding in old military posts are common locations to spot them. If you don't spot them at first, they will definitely spot you. They are armed with a dreaded tiger rifle. These mimics are crazy accurate. Like I said earlier, the sniper is one of the few mimics that tend to stand still. It's true that they do wander around their rooftops, but when they go on the attack, they usually remain in place and shoot from a great distance. A few ways to deal with snipers is to sneak up on them and take them by surprise, but this can be risky. If you can call yourself a good shot, you can try turning the tides by sniping the mimic first. All other mimic types are fairly similar, but can be identified by their weapon and mild cosmetic changes. Hunters are armed with an IZH-27 sawn-off shotgun. They only fire twice before they need to reload. You can use that time to counterattack or get away. Commandos use the MP5K and can be very aggressive, often charging at explorers and engaging at close range. They also have an antenna on their back, like that of a radio. Scouts have AKS-74Us, while gunners have AKMs. Both pack a punch and are very dangerous in groups. And last but not least, the SWAT mimics. These guys can be a real pain to deal with, as they usually hide away in corners, waiting for unknowing explorers to wander near them. Armed with Val rifles, they are the assassins of Team Mimic. The BTR is the scourge of explorers. Often called the tank, this beast is the toughest entity in the radius. Not only does it have near unlimited health, it also regenerates its health back. Essentially, this entity cannot be destroyed, and you will die trying. This entity is modeled after the very real Russian BTR-80, an armored personnel carrier first used in 1986 and is still used today. Like the real BTR, this jerk has a rotating turret and a spotlight, constantly searching for targets to obliterate with its 30mm cannon. If you are caught within its sight, the cannon locks onto you and fires upon you in short bursts. If you try to run, it will chase you down until you manage to shake it off your tail, or, more likely, it kills you. The one disadvantage of this huge beast is noise. When the Radius copied the BTR, it also used the loud rumble of the 260 horsepower diesel engine. This means you can hear the entity from a long way away. This can give you a chance to hide or leave the area before you get spotted. And while the BTR does have a set pattern that it patrols, you can't trust it to remain on its path. If it spots you, it will leave its programmed route to hunt you down. So how do you deal with this monster? Stay out of its line of sight, use cover, smoke grenades, and anything around you to stay out of its sight of that deadly turret. Arguably the most feared entity of the Radius community, the Slider. does not run around like other entities. Instead, it can teleport around. It literally breaks down its entire body and shifts it through reality to move itself around. It still walks around, but even the walking is different. It looks more like a glide, like this creature is not bound to the laws of physics. You may not even see this intrusive being approaching. More likely, you will hear it. Every time a slider teleports, it makes a loud whoosh sounds as it jumps around. The closer it moves to you, the louder this sound becomes. And when it's right on top of you, you can hear the low hum emitting from this creature. Why there's an audible hum from this tall lad is unknown. Could it have something to do with the halo around its head? And speaking of the appearance of the slider, there's one other major detail you will see. This is the only entity with a stable, smooth body. It does not glitch like the others do. Its body is not made of broken or fragmented radius material like the mimics or seekers. The slider is solid, whole, complete. It stands above all the other entities, both in status perspective and literally. The slider is stinking tall, and I believe the slider is considered to be the top dog of the entity family. It's the most complete and finalized of all other monsters of the radius. That's why it has the halo. It's literally made to be a higher being than all other hostiles in the radius. So how do you deal with sliders? This monster will get up in your face whether you like it or not. Even if you hit it with a Mosin at long range, it will still teleport to stand before you and slap you in the face with its sharp claws. When this happens, back up and try to keep your distance and unload your rifle into its head. The head is the weakest part of the slider, but good luck hitting that when they move so fast. However, even the sliders are not the most powerful entity in the radius. There is still one entity so deadly and effective that it puts all other entities to shame. You. Explorer number 61 is a being of the radius. The most advanced creature ever made by the radius. Every explorer that ever wandered out of the fog and into the gates of Vano was actually a being made by the radius. They were made to be as human as possible, giving them free will, a human-like body, and even emotions and free thought. But while the radius did its best to make its own human, the explorers are not a perfect match. This is explained by the UNPSC that all explorers came from the fog and had biology not true to the human body, and would fail if the individual traveled too far away from the radius. That's because the changed, the explorers, have a body that relies on the power of the radius. We cannot survive without the radius because we are not real humans. We are mimics. When we die, we don't die for real. We return and find our old body right where we left it, retrieve our gear, and carry on. That is not a human trait. That is a radius perk. Does that mean we are not real? That we never existed? Well, yes and no. You, as Explorer 61, were never a real human with a human life or human relationships. You don't have any memories of your old life because you did not have one. When you enter the tutorial for the first time or step into the gates of Vano, this is your first day alive. You were never real until now, when the radius made you. But now you do exist. Now you have thoughts, free will, and the ability to do as you see fit. Now you can run around the radius, be it for the UNPSC and their endless tasks for you to do, or for yourself and do as you wish. But why do you exist? Why did the radius make you? While it's never properly explained, my personal theory is that the radius has been using explorers to test whether or not the radius made a perfect fighter. One able to take on anything and everything the radius could throw at it. It would take dozens, maybe even hundreds of test subjects to make one that could find its way through every mission and trial the Radius had. But eventually, you came around. You, as Explorer number 61, you made it all the way through to find your way to the heart of the Radius. Or are you? It's not clear whether you were the first one to complete all tests and find the Grail artifact. Maybe others were successful before you, but for now, all we can do is guess what the Radius has in store for us next.